Sorry it's been so long. I have been putting together a lot of projects for our collective in terms of curating different projects for different artists, so I've been crazy busy and haven't really been able to film a lot of YouTube videos for you guys, and I'm super sorry about that, but I am back. And today we're talking about contracts. Let's go. Now guys, my channel is all about pushing artists to the next level and improving their business acumen and their mindset alike. And if this is you, you guys should subscribe below and like this video. Now first and foremost guys, if you're purchasing our mural contract template or you're listening to this video, it's important to know I am not an attorney, I am not a lawyer, I am not a legal advisor. I'm just a muralist with experience who's worked with a lot of other muralists and other companies and know that there are certain clauses that are pretty important to have in a contract, and you should always consult with an attorney or some sort of legal advisor when you're pushing for a lawsuit, when there's a breach of a contract, when you're altering a contract, or in general when you're using a contract. To get right into things guys, I think it's important to say that contracts are meant to protect both parties, not just the client and not just the artist. Now, every artist should have a contract, especially when you're working with a client. Now, because a lot of artists don't know how to draw up contracts, I'm making this video, and I also have our mural contract template on our website that we're selling for $40. That's just to save you the hassle of drawing up a contract yourself. First and foremost, you guys should always be taking a deposit. You always want to take a 50% non-refundable upfront deposit that ensures that any work you do will be paid. You shouldn't be doing any work before that deposit is collected. Now the reason this is so important is because I know a lot of you watching this video are probably guilty of doing mock-ups or sketches and giving them to the client beforehand before there's been any sort of payment. You guys are not just ruining things for yourselves, but also for other artists because you're giving out free work, and this makes clients think that they can get free work. That in turn creates this whole social stigma of the starving artist mentality and that artists should be working for cheap or for free. You guys need to be getting compensated for every single line that you draw if it's for a client. If you're doing work for someone, you need to be getting paid for it unless you are donating it and giving it away for completely free. So in your contract, you need to stipulate that you will collect an upfront 50% non-refundable deposit, and that's for any time that you're going to spend on the project, any software you'll need, any materials you'll need, and any sort of specialized tools or softwares that you're going to need to make a project come to fruition. In your contract, it needs to stipulate somewhere that you're collecting that deposit and that the remainder of the 50% is due when the project is complete. We also have in our contracts that if we are not paid within 30 days of the final invoice, the client gets a late fee, as they should. The longer a client waits to pay you, the less likely they are to pay you. It's important that you send that invoice as soon as the project's done so you get your payment as soon as possible. Now your contract also needs to talk about the timeline in which you're going to get a project done. The timeline is both to act as a guide for the client and for yourself. You need to hold yourself accountable for meeting these deadlines. It's important to note here guys that especially with murals, the timeline can be subject to change, and any change to that timeline needs to be in written word somewhere, whether it's through email, whether it's through text message. You need to be able to track what one person said and that the other person confirmed it. Whenever you're making any sort of changes to your agreement after a contract is signed, it's super important to get it in writing and to make sure the other person approves it. And that's both for the client and for the artist. Your project needs to stipulate the exact deadlines of different phases of the project. For example, maybe it takes you 2 weeks to complete the mock-up phase, 1 week to complete the revision stage, 1 week to complete the actual mural, and from there, the final payment is due. Exact dates need to be in your contract. All right guys, this is one of the most important parts of the video, so pay attention. Never do work for hire. Never, ever, 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 ever do work for hire. Unless you're charging like 3 to 4 times your normal price. Work for hire means that any art or design that you are creating for the client has complete rights to. That means they can alter it, distribute it, print it on whatever they want. They can do anything they want with your artwork if you're doing work for hire. If a client sends you a contract that's a work for hire contract, you need to politely say, I'm sorry, I actually don't do work for hire contracts. I have to go specifically by my organization's or my own contract And if you think that there are any changes or alterations that need to be made to the contract to protect you as the client, I'm happy to go through those with you. This way, you retain all copyright of your work. Now, somewhere in your contract needs to also specify that you are retaining all the copyrights and that the image that you are creating for the client can only be used on exactly what's agreed upon. So for example, if it's for a mural, then you are saying that you are going to affix the design to a wall and it is to only be used for that wall. They cannot print it on any clothing, they cannot use it on their website as a digital design. They need to run those things by you and pay you for those licensing fees if they want to do that. This also presents an opportunity for you to mark up the price if a client does want to use your design for multiple things. So let's say, for example, you're selling a mural for $7,000. If a client wants to print that design that you're using for the mural on other products like maybe clothing or coffee mugs, then you need to be charging more. Now this amount can vary wherein you say, if you want to use this for anything else, then we'll charge you a flat fee of $3,000. Or you can do a royalty deal wherein every time they sell something, you make a small percentage of what they're making. Who retains the copyright is one of the most important reasons you have a contract in the first place, so make sure that you have this somewhere in your contract. Now you also need to have some sort of clause that talks about how many mock-ups you're doing and how many rounds of revisions the client gets. A lot of clients push for more and more and more revision. Typically, I like to give clients 2 rounds of revisions and 2 mock-ups. They'll choose a mock-up that they like and I can make revisions to it 2 times and 2 times only. If they want more than 2 rounds of revisions, then they need to pay me an hourly rate. Now that hourly rate is up to you to determine. Hourly rate is going to vary from artist to artist, but don't undersell yourself here. I recommend starting at a base hourly rate of $75 an hour. This will discourage the client from wanting more and more rounds of revisions because it's going to cost them money and time alike. It's also important to note, especially if you're a muralist, that a mock-up and a finished mural won't look exactly the same. It's really hard to match colors precisely going from digital to a wall. There's going to be small angles and portions of the mural that are a little bit different than what's shown in a digital piece. Using Procreate or Photoshop or Illustrator to drop your designs, everything is going to be perfect because there's so many different smart guides and there's so much consistency when you're using software. When you're in person painting a mural, there are going to be small imperfections. And you will have clients that want to pick out every tiny little imperfection, every one. And that's why you have a clause that protects you saying that a mock-up and a digital rendering will be slightly different. Now, it's also important to have some sort of clause about delays. Especially in murals, there can be all sorts of different delays, whether it's with the landlord, maybe it's with the lift company, maybe there's some sort of issue with the weather. It's important to have in your contract that if there is some sort of delay that's outside of your control, that you are able to extend the completion date of the mural. It's also important to have this because, God forbid, there's some sort of death in the family or some sort of physical disability that you have, that you are able to be protected with your contract. I think it's also important to point out here that you also should have the right to terminate the project if something goes wrong. Now, typically, if you're going to cancel something, you want to have that in writing as well. I've never actually had to cancel a project, but there has been a time where it's come a little bit close, and it's important to have that in your contract. One more important thing I want to touch base on, guys, is in the event of a legal proceeding that the client has to come to you to a court that's within your county. Any sort of dispute needs to be handled in small claims court or arbitration. But especially if you're flying somewhere, you want to say that the court proceeding needs to happen in your county where you're from, so you don't have to fly back to the client. Hoping this video helped teach you guys a couple things about protecting yourself as an artist and drawing up a contract. Like I said, we do have our mural contract template on our website. It's only $40, guys. If you're getting big mural projects, $40 is close to nothing to invest, and it's something that's going to protect you for the rest of your career. I'm really hoping I brought you guys some value today, and I will see you guys in the next video.